condition to open a foreign-owned company in Vietnam?
According to the law of Vietnam and some international treaties that Vietnam is a party to, for example, the WTO, Vietnam allow foreigners and foreign company to set up foreign-owned company in Vietnam. However, there are certain conditions for certain industry, certain business. So if you are a foreigner or you are a foreign company and you want to set up a company in Vietnam, you first need to determine what is the business that you will do in Vietnam, that your future company in Vietnam will do. Then we will need to check what are the conditions to set up that company in Vietnam based on the business that such company will operate. For example, there are many businesses that you can set up a company to do in Vietnam as a foreigner without having to satisfy any condition. So I think for like 70 or 80% of the businesses of the industries, a foreigner or a foreign company can open a company in Vietnam, and you don't need to satisfy any special conditions. You will be treated similarly as a Vietnamese person if you want to set up a company to do those businesses. For example, in F&B, if you want to open a restaurant in Vietnam as a foreigner, there are no conditions for foreigner to open the company. So you can open a fully 100% foreign-owned company to open a restaurant in Vietnam. Or if you want to open a hotel in Vietnam, this is also the same. However, in some industry, there will be special condition for foreigners if you want to open a company in Vietnam. For foreigners and for foreign company to open its subsidiary company in Vietnam, for some businesses, for some industry, you need to satisfy certain conditions. For example, if you want to do tourism, the condition is that if you are a foreigner and you want to open a tourism company in Vietnam, you need to have one Vietnamese partner to be a shareholder. You cannot own 100% the company in Vietnam. You need to find a partner who is Vietnamese person to create a joint venture. That is the first condition. You can own 99% of the company, but you need a Vietnamese person. That person can only own 1% or 0.1%, but still need a person, still need a Vietnamese shareholder. That is the first condition. The second condition is for tourism, you cannot do outbound tourism, right? You can only bring foreigners to Vietnam for foreign tourists to Vietnam. You cannot bring Vietnamese tourists to all the countries, right? So there are certain conditions in other industry too. For example, in transportation, foreign companies can only own up to 49% of a transportation company in Vietnam. So the condition varies based on the business that you want to do in Vietnam. So in order to know what condition that you are subject to, you need to determine what are the businesses that your future company in Vietnam will do. So you might need to consult with a lawyer to understand what will be so first you need to know the businesses, the industry that you will do in Vietnam, and then you might contact a lawyer, or you can check the law to find what are the conditions required for foreigner to open a company to do those businesses in Vietnam.
So what is the process to open a foreign company in Vietnam?
The process to open a foreign-owned company will include the following steps. First is to obtain a license called IRC, Investment Registration Certificate, and according to the law, it only takes 15 working days to obtain the certificates. However, in reality, sometimes the authority might request for adjustment of the application, and the actual time might be a bit longer. It might be 1 month or a bit longer than 1 month. In some extreme cases, it can be even longer, maybe 2-3 months. That is the first license, Investment Registration Certificate. The second license is Enterprise Registration Certificate, or in short, ERC. ERC is the company registration certificate. It is about the company. IRC is about the investment, and the ERC is about the company. According to the law, it would take 3 working days to obtain the ERC. 3 working days from the day that you submitted the application. And after you have got the IRC and the ERC, you need to do some post-licensing procedures. For example, you need to register to get a stamp, a company stamp, company seal. Actually, it is quite simple. You can just go to a seal or stamp making company and request for a stamp, and you pay fee. They will give you the stamp. In 1 day, you can get the stamp. Quite simple. Then you need to do the bank account opening. So you need to open bank account, and specifically you need to open a bank account called Direct Investment Capital Account, in short, DEDICA, and that bank account is dedicated to receive investment fund from the investor, the foreign investor, and in the future it will be for remitting profit back to foreign country. So you would need to open the DEDICA account and then payment account for the company. Normally it would take about 1 or 2 weeks to open the bank account for the company. Then you would need to need to buy a digital signature for tax registration purposes. You need to register the tax account, online account for the company, etc. So some post-licensing procedures like that. And then if your business require a sub-license, a special license to operate. For example, if you do F&B, you need to get a certificate for food safety and hygiene. If you do education, you need to get the certificate for education operation, right? Or if you need to, if you do healthcare like a clinic, you need to get certificate for clinic operation, etc. Or if you do manufacturing, you might need to get some licenses regarding construction. If you build the factories, you need to get all the construction permit. You need to get the firefighting approval before you can fully operate. And firefighting is very important for certain businesses. For example, factory manufacturing, or in sensitive services like hotels or karaoke, or some other sensitive, risky services. You will need to get the firefighting approval before you can fully operate your businesses. The process is generally like what I just mentioned, but according to the new investment law, which took effect from March 1st, 2026, you don't need to go to exactly the order that I mentioned. You can get the ERC, the Enterprise Registration Certificate, first, and then get the IRC, the Investment Registration Certificate, after you got the ERC. So the new law has a slight change in the order of the license. So you can choose to get the IRC first and the ERC later, or you can get the ERC first and the IRC later. The benefit of getting the ERC first is that you can have the company very quickly, so that you can sign contracts, right? You can have an entity very quickly, but you will need to get the IRC anyway. And if you have the ERC already but you cannot get the IRC, it can be a bit risky, because if you don't get the IRC, you cannot operate the company. Therefore, many investors still prefer to get the IRC first. So this is the process in general, but in certain for specific business, right, specific case, the process might be a bit different. So you should consult with your law firm first. Also, before you even start the process applying for setting up the company, you need to prepare for documentation. For example, legalization of your documents. For example, if you are a foreign company and you want to open a subsidiary company in Vietnam, you need to prepare for your company licenses. It should be legalized by the Vietnamese embassy or consulate in your country. Then you can bring them to Vietnam to apply for setting up the company in Vietnam. Also, you need to have a contract, a lease contract, or a deposit contract, or an MOU, a document that proves that you have secured a premise to register your company, your business in Vietnam. You need to have an address in Vietnam for your company before you can apply to set up your company. Then you need to prepare some document like financial proof to prove that you have the finance, the necessary finance to open to register the company that you are planning to register.